Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. So today I want to talk about the most insane media story I've ever heard in my life, where there's a reality and then there's what they're trying to tell you in the media, and they're so far apart. It's astounding, right? They're just literally telling you, no, we're at war with Eurasia. Yesterday we were at war with somebody else. No, we're at war with Eurasia. They're telling you that. Just don't believe your lying eyes. So basically, it surrounds this the most recent missile attack. So the second missile attack of Iran against Israel, right? And I'm not covering this as current events because I'm publishing this much later. But basically, the day it happened, I was following these stories, and I immediately go to X, right? And you just type in whatever, just hashtag Iran, like whatever you want. And you see the phenomenally successful missile attack of Iran on Israel, right? You see it with your eyes. And then you go look at the stories. And I'm literally at work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get these headlines. I've got to get these headlines. And I didn't get off work for like 5 or 6 hours. And then I'm immediately just open my laptop and just try to get the stories. And so it's the day of, I get the stories, the day of the attack. And the articles have already been edited, you know, and I go to Wayback Machine and they're like, nobody's archived these. So I literally was the first one to archive these on the day of the attack. And so my sources are like the DOD website and stuff, you know, so this very mainstream stuff I'm going to pitch to you. But basically, I've got the video evidence, though, of the success of the attack. So here's what they said real fast, right? Here's what they said. Quote, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective, end quote. President Joe Biden said following the barrage where 2 American destroyers helped intercept the missiles. Okay, this is a news article from the day of the attack. Now we're going to go to the DOD website. Iran attacked Israel earlier today with a barrage of approximately 200 ballistic missiles. While most of those missiles were destroyed before reaching their target, some did impact and cause minimal damage, said the Pentagon Press Secretary, during a briefing today. Initial indications, writer said, that there was minimal damage on the ground, and Israel was able to defend itself against the Iranian attack successfully. Okay, now let me just show you some videos of the phenomenally successful attack that Iran did, right, on their impenetrable Iron Dome, right?
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر والله الله أكبر الله أكبر كل النسبة يا رب الله أكبر راح المطار لبيك يا حسين لبيك يا رسول الله يا الله يا الله لبيك يا نصر الله.
Okay, and I'm gonna show you another quick clip, which is just them. Okay, so all the military, those were air bases being just leveled, right? In those videos you just saw. There's also, they put Mossad headquarters in the middle of Tel Aviv, and here's literally a picture of them just rocket striking the exact building they wanted to.
اسمع
Okay, so the video evidence tells us that the attack was extremely successful, yet Biden and the DOD are saying that it was completely unsuccessful. There was minimal damage, right? So this lie about the Iranian attack being completely unsuccessful was so prominent and accepted that at the debate that happened the same night as the attack, the very first question they asked both of the vice presidential candidates was about, well, Israel, of course, because that's the most important thing to Americans, right? But the way they phrased the first question is insane. They phrase it as a completely unsuccessful attack where no missiles hit. Basically, that's what they infer. So I clipped a small part of that just where they asked the question, so you can see how ridiculous what they're talking about is.
We're going to begin tonight with the Middle East. Margaret.
Thank you, Nora. Earlier today, Iran launched its largest attack yet on Israel, but that attack failed, thanks to joint U.S. and Israeli defensive action. President Biden has deployed more than 40,000 U.S. military personnel and assets to that region over the past year to try to prevent a regional war. Iran is weakened, But the U.S. still considers it the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, and it has drastically reduced the time it would take to develop a nuclear weapon. It is down now to 1 or 2 weeks' time. Governor Walz, if you were the final voice in the Situation Room, would you support or oppose a preemptive strike by Israel on Iran? You have 2 minutes.
There's this conspiracy theory, right? And the conspiracy theory is that, oh, well, let's talk about what actually was damaged, right? So they targeted 3 air bases and they targeted the Mossad headquarters, right? They wrecked these air bases, okay? They killed F-35. They destroyed F-35s on the ground, right? And they're trying to say that, oh, Iran just wasted $300 million in missiles because, you know, they just didn't do anything. But every time you kill an F-35 on the ground, it's a big deal. And you also got to understand that they were using hypersonic missiles, right? So I don't have the clip of it, but basically when they fire the missiles, they're going to be there in minutes, right? The sign on the building in Iran, I think it says like 7 minutes to Tel Aviv. You know, that's what their billboards say and stuff like that. But I think they said 10 to 12 minutes, which is still a very short time. So there's a video of Netanyahu running down the hallway. He's running for the bunker as quick as he can. He's an old man. He did pretty good on the jogging, we'll say. But that's how extreme it was. So like normally you think, okay, we got an attack incoming. Let's see where it's coming at. It's coming at that airbase. Let's get the F-35s off the ground, you know? But there was no time to get the F-35s off the ground. So they were destroyed in their hangars, which is a big deal. That's a phenomenal success, you know? And I don't know why they couldn't get him up. Like Victor was literally telling me a story when I was telling him about this, how during the Cold War, they had, the United States had like different crews with different times. So at some air bases, you would have fighter pilots sleeping in the fighter pilot. And that was the 30-second crew. They could get off the ground in 30 seconds. And then you had in the crew room, you had like the 3-minute crew or whatever the times were, you know, and then you had the 20-minute crew who were asleep, but they could get there. Then you had that, you know, so you had all these different, I don't understand why they couldn't get the F-35s off the ground. Maybe they just count on the U.S. giving them more. So, you know, like it's no great loss. But anyways, there's this conspiracy theory around this, right? That Israel let the missiles come through the Iron Dome, and then their Arrow 2 and Arrow 3, which is the farther out for the ballistic missiles defense. And they let them come through because they wanted to instigate a larger war against Iran. That conspiracy theory falls flat, in my opinion, because what's happening is Iran did this incredibly successful attack that says that Iran literally owns Israel. Anytime they want to, they could just devastate all of Israel if they want to, because Israel cannot stop these missiles, right? That's what the attack showed, okay? But instead they downplay the amount of damage. So if this was a strategic move by Israel in order to win a propaganda war, in order to get everybody to war with Iran, they would be upplaying the damage. They would say they killed 1,500 little girls, you know, or they would just be making up stuff. You know, they burned babies alive while they were beheading. You know what I'm saying? We've seen it before, so you know. But they're not. They're downplaying it, which means that, in my opinion, this conspiracy is not true. So this reminds me of the exact story that we ran on a very older episode where we talked about whether or not the U.S. used atomic bombs in Nagasaki or Hiroshima at the end of World War II. Now, I'm going to link that episode below, but if I could just give you a short version of it, right? The damage of the atomic bombs was inconsistent with atomic bombs, but it was completely consistent with firebombing, right? And so I can't remember the details. The details are in the episode, but it was like something having to do with whether or not the glass is broken, whether or not the infrastructure is wiped out, the baldness of the spot above where the atomic bomb goes off. It's all in that video. You can check it out. And it's like, well, but why? Why would you lie about atomic bombs? And the reason was, at the time, is because they wanted to say, okay, the main superiority you need to have is air superiority, because bombing is meta. It's meta in warfare, but it wasn't meta, because when they were doing the big air bombs on the industrial sectors and civilian sectors of National Socialist Germany, they were destroying all these means of productions. But if you look at Germany's line of production over the course of the war, it constantly went up. So they couldn't stop production. They were building, you know, these factories inside of hills and stuff like that, which is complicated, but they still kept upping their production factor, which means the air superiority wasn't meta. So then they tried to do this PSYOP where they say, oh, look, we did atomic bombs. It's really meta now, but it kind of wasn't, you know? And so they wanted to do that live. So Scott Ritter has been talking about this a lot. And I don't want to be insulting, but I don't find Scott Ritter credible at all, right? He was in Trump's administration. He was way back when. He was a weapons inspector in like the 90s. And so he's very credentialed. And he keeps talking about like Iran and these missiles. And he says these missiles are the ultimate deterrence. And I watch him a little bit and I just don't believe him, you know? And then I see this and they're meta, these missiles, right? The hypersonic missiles, they at current time, they've shown a complete inability to stop them, right? Now, it could have been because Iran did a cyber attack before, because apparently they're sophisticated over there, and they did the cyber attack before, which could have brought down the defenses. That's possible. And under other non-cyber attack conditions, they might have been able to stop them. I don't know the answer to that. All I know is that they were phenomenally successful, right? And you got to think about what this is looking at for the rest of the world, because it's like when this happened, and the U.S. says what they say, the DOD says it, Biden says it, the generals know. The generals know. They've seen the X videos that you can commonly see on X, and the majority of the population of the planet who's politically aware has seen. So they're not believing this hype from the government. But did they pull their carriers back a little bit from China? You know what I'm saying? Did they rethink Ukraine? Because obviously, if the hypersonic missiles hit aircraft carriers, that would be a terrible, terrible situation. Does it embolden China over the Taiwan situation? I saw this one clip, and it was similar to the ones I showed you where the missiles were really successful in Israel. And over the screen, they had put a little caption that they just put, and it said, "You mistook our mercy for weakness," which is interesting because if you think about this, Iran's just sitting there, and they could have done this at any time, but they didn't. And over 40,000 people in Gaza, but they didn't. And they just held, right? Which is kind of going to go into tomorrow's episode, which I've got this very interesting angle on, I think. So the interesting thing I think here is just how reality is one thing, and they're telling you that it's the exact opposite, right? This is great evidence to use to anybody who still believes in any type of media, like any type of mainstream media. I went to different sources to see, like, I gotta know what Tim Pool will say about this. I gotta know it. Oh, Patch on PBD's show. It was great, right? Adam was giving his critique of the, I almost clipped it in here, honestly, but then I decided I didn't want to bore you with that. But he was giving his critique of this attack, and he's like, you know what Iran's terrible at? Fighting. Like, they're terrible at, like, war. You know, they did such a terrible job. They didn't even kill anybody. They injured two people, like, I guess, soldiers, and then like some type of something from a bomb literally fell and squished like a Palestinian or an Arab or something. Anyways, and he's like, man, they're just terrible at war, right? Which he's playing into this whole thing because he's giving the full system, government, establishment view, and they're all nodding along like, yes, the establishment is the best. You should trust the establishment. Also trust the DOD and President Biden. That's their angle, you know? But it's so funny because it's such a Jewish thing he's saying. He's saying, wow, you know, they didn't murder any civilians. Like, how terrible are they? They didn't kill Israeli civilians. Like 10 million Israeli civilians had to go into bunkers. You didn't get any of them, right? This is his Jewish view, right? All their targets were military targets. The goal was to kill 0 civilians. That was a success. If they kill people who were in the military, because they didn't abandon the bases, which they did abandon all the bases because they knew the missiles, if the missiles hit, you know, if they succeeded. That's why there was no casualties, even as they were showing the F-35s on the ground. But like in his view, it's like we could have used those same amount of missiles and killed like 800 civilians. We would have bombed them in their homes. We would have said there were missiles in the homes. You know what I mean? That's the Jewish view. And so anyways, okay, that's all I got for you today. I think it's really interesting. Save this in your mind. You could literally show it to anybody, and you could just have instant proof that the media is complete trash. So tomorrow's episode, I want to talk about an adjacent topic. I'm going to play you those videos of the successful missile strikes right after I close here and before the outro, just so you can see again. It's ridiculous. Anyways, hope to see you Thursday.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر والله الله أكبر الله أكبر كل النسبة يا رب الله أكبر راح المطار لبيك يا حسين.
لبيك يا نصر الله. يا الله يا الله.
لبيك يا نصر الله.
اسمع 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 اسمع. هيا 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 يا حبيبي. ايوه ايوه ايوه.